Let's go to our friend Matt. Matt is always a good guy. He gives us a couple of bucks every time. And this is, you pay money, you get to the front of the line. Matthew says, hey, Jeannie's comments are smart. She has play-by-play ball with, she has to play ball with the other 29 owners. She can't say she fleeced them. Dr. Buss understood this. He taught well.
Well, Dr. Buss was bold. Of course, a lot of Jerry Buss's accomplishments were prior to anything that relates to a salary cap and salary cap aprons and limitations, etc. But the Lakers have been running in sand for a long time, and even though they're hot right now and you can be excited at this 12 wins in 14 games, let's understand Jeannie Buss has mismanaged this thing dating back to when Phil Jackson was there. And they had all types of internal problems. And then post-Kobe Shaq, it's not been a great franchise. So going forward, I guess you can put your hand up and say, I think I'm going to order playoff tickets, and they will be in the playoffs. But how deep they go remains to be seen. And they still got games during this rest of this regular season against some pretty good basketball teams. I guess, and I got into a discussion at the fitness center that I work out every morning. And there's basketball junkies all over the place there. And we got into this discussion about Lakers, what they've accomplished, da-da-da-da. And I said, just answer me one question. Do you compare the Lakers right now to the best team in the league, the Cleveland Cavaliers? Do the Lakers have enough athletes to compete against Oklahoma City? Are the Lakers equal to last year's champion, the Boston Celtics? End of discussion.
I love hearing the stories of Hacksaw in the wild, out amongst the people and getting, hosting talk shows on street corners. This is fantastic, But, you say the Lakers have been down, but the Lakers won in the COVID year, right? I mean, are we going to say that's an asterisk and kind of downplay it like when the Dodgers won?
That was not an 80-game schedule, pal.
No, it wasn't. No.
We'll see. I mean, obviously, everybody's upbeat about what Laker basketball has become. And there's no doubt that Luka's a great player. And it was intriguing to me to see how Luka and LeBron coexisted. Who ran the offense? Well, the offense is going through Doncic right now. So let's just see how deep they go. But at the end of the day, are they equal to Boston and Cleveland? Well, those two young gun rosters that we've talked about? Remains to be seen.
Remains to be seen. Okay. Want to keep moving on? Okay, Matthew's got a few more, but I'm going to intersperse them later. But Matthew's a good man. He kind of helps us out. Let's go here to Royal Sports. He goes, Lee, very disappointed in you wearing an Oilers hoodie rather than a Jets after all that Andrew and Michael have done for you.
I have contributed to Winnipeg Sports Talk on a regular basis for probably 5 to 7 years. Those guys are doing great up there. And yes, I did talk down to them when we were talking about why the hell are you trying to make all these trades in Winnipeg? I do have a Jets hoodie. Maybe for the playoffs, I will wear my Winnipeg Jets hoodie. So, hey.
You've been talking about that Winnipeg Jets hoodie since we started this podcast. I don't think I've ever seen it.
I've got it. I'm sure. All I know is this was in the closet. It was clean when I put it on.
I think it was on the top of the pile, right?
Probably. Exactly. We got more hoodies than I have good-looking clothes. Winnipeg, Royal Sports, you guys are great. Thanks for joining us, man.
Okay, let's go here to Carlos. He goes, Lee, how can the LA Kings improve via trade for the playoff run?
Well, this story coming out of Carolina in the last 4 hours that they have made a call to the Carolina Panthers and they're actually really taking a hard look at this 40-goal scorer that Carolina can't get re-signed. But I will tell you, getting Rantanen out of Carolina is going to be pricey. You know, are you going to auction off all your first-round picks, or you're going to trade some of your younger players? How do you get them at what price? And are you running a risk if you overpay to get Rantanen now and you can't re-sign him? What the hell happens to your team? Now you've traded all these assets away and you got him for a couple of months to try to go deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs. They need goal scoring. Their goal scoring has really disappeared. So Rob Blake's got his hands full here. They have always been active. Rob has been proactive in terms of player acquisitions, offseason and at the trade deadline. So I would assume they're going to do something, but I don't know if Rantanen is the right guy just because the price you have to pay. No doubt he's a great player. 269 career goals, 40 goals last year, 20. I think he's got 29 this year. Wow. Big price.
Well, we're still like, about 24 hours or so, maybe 22 hours away from the deadline.
12 noon Friday.
Tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. So what are the big names that you think are going to drop in the next 24 hours?
Well, we just ran through them. on the segment. You know, at one point I thought John Gibson was going to be traded, and then the Ducks goaltender got hurt last night. Brad Marchand. If Boston traded Brad Marchand, that's a terrible sign to Bruins fans that era is over. But again, he's a walk free agent. Are you going to trade the house to get him as a difference maker on your team fighting for a playoff spot with the risk you might lose him July 1st when he becomes a free agent? Brock Nelson, very good defenseman, New York Islanders. He's available out there. Obviously, Rantanen is the marquee name. What kind of message does it send to the fans in Vancouver if you trade your former 40-goal scorer Brock Besser while you're fighting to stay in the playoff race? Edmonton's got resources. Edmonton's trying to make a deal. Evander Kane is out there on the trade block in Edmonton, but he's hurt. But that would be a salary cap move. I'm moving him. You can get him on an expiring contract going forward. Rickard Rakell, I think, is very, very much a guy who's going to move out of Pittsburgh because he can score goals and he's got a more affordable contract. And the weird one is the goaltender in St. Louis. I don't know where Jordan Binnington is as to why he's being shopped after the great success he had in the Four Nations tournament, but the Blues are shopping him too. So, and there are teams that need goaltending. So those are the marquee names. Like I say, coming into the show today, there'd already been 24 trades made in the league, including like 8 in the last 28 hours. So there's more tonight. Check my website first thing tomorrow, and obviously deadline at 12 noon tomorrow.
Well, last year, what was the number of trades? It was like
43.
Yeah, it was a big number.
Oh, all-time record.
I mean, your script notes, you're running out of ink on your pen.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you for joining us on the Hockey Hotline. You stay tuned. We'll continue to talk about it.
Okay, let's get Matthew back in the list here. And he says, Yoshi throwing before Yaki made me see that Roki is better than Yoshi.
Well, I think they're both great. Now, Yoshi had an unbelievably dominant first spring training start. Second start got banged around a little bit, but that's okay. It's spring training. Sasaki was just dominant. Now we'll see how he does in the second one and how his body comes back. Is that, Dave Roberts said that was a max effort thing that he saw from Sasaki in that first exhibition game. I was amazed he let him throw 3 innings, but he's been throwing bullpens and throwing on back fields for weeks. So they felt he was ready to be able to get to 3 innings. So, hey, 2 weeks from now, Dodgers, Cubs. Should I warn them now that I might wear my Dodger hoodie that week? But Sasaki, Yamamoto, they're going to start the 2 games against the Cubs over there in Tokyo on, I think it's the 23rd, 24th. So that's going to be fun.
Don't you think, though, that Sasaki's a young kid? He was in the news, and he just probably said, man, this is my first time. I'm going for it. I'm going to prove that I'm legit. I'm going to prove I belong. And he proved it. I mean, so good for him. But freaking the Dodgers are just so loaded in every position.
Yeah, and Clayton Kershaw is out there doing hardball long toss at full velocity in the outfield and throwing bullpens. But he says there's no rush. With this roster, there's no rush. They're projecting him on June 1st. And we don't know whether Dustin May is going to start or whether he'll be in the bullpen. But so far, his 2 starts have been pretty decent in terms of stuff. Gonsolin has yet to give up a run. He's coming off surgery. Dodgers are just really deep.
Imagine when they make their final cuts. I mean, there's going to be some big names on that list.
Yeah, a bunch of them are on the DL now. A couple have options who will go back to Oklahoma City, and then maybe somebody else gets hurt and winds up on the disabled list, or somebody winds up getting traded. To quote John, anytime we have this topic on the table, Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have the right tone of voice, though. It's like Dodgers. All
right, next one. Thanks for being with us, Matt.
Let's go to John. He goes, is Joey Bosa the next Charger who finally gets his Super Bowl ring by going to a new team?
He'll be a bargain. Now, he's not going to get $25 million. He's going to wind up with a contract really early, I think, in this process. And on the right type of defense, that's a pretty dangerous guy. And if he wants to win, hell, I could see him going to the Detroit Lions on an affordable contract, not $25 million. But he's going to get action from lots of places. I would assume, John, he would pick a team that's right there on the brink of being Super Bowl. He's not going to the New York Football Giants, or I don't think to the New York Jets. So interesting to see. But he's got to stay on the field and he's got to stay healthy, and that was obviously the big issue here.
Well, I'm trying to think of the Chargers that have won Super Bowl rings that after they left. And I mean, Seau and Rodney Harrison are the obvious ones. Who are some of the other names?
Oh, that's a good question.
Fred Dean, maybe?
But that was way before Super Bowls, I think, were played.
No. Fred Dean was like the early 80s or the late 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
But there's a list. I mean, and we can make a list of Padres that have left and gone on to win World Series rings too.
Yeah. It was interesting. I asked a mini poll question last night on my website. Greatest pass rusher of all time, defensive lineman pass rusher. Because Bosa's second all time in Charger sacks, and to me, the best one, he never got any true global national recognition, was Leslie O'Neal. He was big and he was physical. And he was a strong side guy, and he's the all-time leading sack artist with the Chargers. Bosa was second, and Lee Williams, the big cat, who was a pass rusher when I was there, when I first came as a voice of the Chargers, and he gave him 4 or 5 really good years, had a knee injury, and then he got traded, and his career never, ever evolved. Lee Williams is third, I think, on the pass rush list of pass rushers. That doesn't include the Seaus of the world, but yeah, Bosa was good. It just didn't pan out. So he'll go somewhere. I don't know if they've been talking about he might line up with his brother, but how many big money guys named Bosa can the 49ers have on their salary cap?
Yeah, I mean, they're clearing some space now. They got rid of Samuel, but you think of the most ferocious pass rushers. I mean, immediately Lawrence Taylor comes to mind, but he's not a defensive lineman. But what I was just thinking about is, remember Mark Gastineau?
Sure.
From the Jets. I mean, he had a nice little run there.
Yeah, he was a really good player. He was a steroid-driven guy.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, what was the nickname of that group? The Sack Exchange.
Yeah, that's right.
Sack Exchange, New York Giants.
So there's a Jets.
Jets.
Yeah.
Him, Joe Klecko. I mean, there were 4 really great pass rush guys together.
Mm-hmm.
A few of those guys had screws loose, too. Holy cow.
Well, yeah.
I guess it was a problem. Okay, thanks for the input, John.
Okay, we're weaving Matthew in here near the top of the list. Let's go back to Matt. He says, guys, Lakers are the 2nd seed and the best record since January.
They are. But I'm not going to admit that I said anything wrong, because there's still the rest of the schedule to be played. But if they finish up, if they roar through and beat some of these other people the way they're beating up the have-nots, and I'll say, hey, nah, I wasn't wrong. We'll see what the playoffs are like. But, hey, they're good. Enjoy it. This is really kind of cool how Luka and LeBron have been able to coexist.
Yeah, but do they have like a center? I mean, do they just like have nobody in the paint? They're just hitting threes and...
No, Jackson Hayes and those guys will score 5 points a game. But if they and Jared Vanderbilt in postseason play, you think those guys even show up if they have to play Boston in the playoffs?
Yeah, or like someone like Jokic is just going to run over them.
I would think so.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's still games to be played and some really good teams left on the schedule. But this has been fun. This has happened at a lot quicker pace, Luka, LeBron, than I ever thought it would.
I agree. I'm surprised.
You agree with me? What the hell's wrong with you?
Well, and it's kind of cool having Luka in Southern California, because I'm getting to learn about it more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to Emmanuel. He says, I'm glad that Stafford stayed in Los Angeles. Also happy to see Matthew Stafford giving new football uniforms to my alma mater, Pasadena High School.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody saw the video last night on X. It was really impressive. Stafford and his wife showed up at this awards ceremony at Pasadena High School, and he financed football uniforms for the entire football program. He's such a cool guy. Not just as a player, not just as a leader, but what he does in his communities. I mean, it is absolutely stunning who Matthew Stafford is and what he represents, not just as a Rams quarterback, as a player, what he represents as a person. I mean, he's just unique human being.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the more I've learned about him, the more I really like him, because when he was in Detroit, as far as I was concerned, he had fallen off the face of the earth.
No, but he did the exact same thing in the inner cities in Detroit. He's an amazing human being.
That's what I had heard, so it's special to have him here. I'm glad he's back. But, I get a ton of Matthew Stafford on my TV for like him and his wife are in bed in a mattress commercial,
sure.
But yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving. And we're going to go here to, Jason. He says, Joey Bosa, last San Diego Charger. Kind of sad to think about it.
Yeah, but, that's been 7 years now since they left. Of course, as I said, not really the last San Diego Charger. The last Charger should be the Spanos family. Yeah, and I think a lot of people like to see them leave too.
Well, yeah, Jason has the follow-up here. He says, Spanos, the last San Diego Charger? Did you really just say that, Saw? Ugh.
Well, they owned it here. They own it up there. They've had, I think the number is they've owned the franchise 37 years. They've had 17 winning seasons in 37 years. One Super Bowl appearance. 17 winning seasons in 37 years.
That ain't good. I mean, I just remember, this is before Spanos, but remember in the late 70s and early 80s,
Gene Klein.
that was an electric team. And that was right when the 49ers were starting to become good. And there was a chance that they were going to meet in that Super Bowl in 1982. But I think it was that Ice Bowl or whatever.
Cincinnati. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if you go back to that Chargers roster back in that glory days, I mean, it's a really remarkable.
Yeah, that was before I got here. I got here just as the rebuilding was about to begin. Dan Fouts was the last one standing. That was his last year was my first year, and he had nothing around him, which is really hard to watch. And then he decided to retire and go into broadcasting. Gene Klein, he was a hell of an owner, players owner. Now, he was involved in a lot of wars. He was involved with agents, and he fought with players who held out. Fouts held out. John Jefferson held out. Klein had a heart attack testifying in the Al Davis lawsuit about the move to L.A. It was really bad. But he was a very successful, very popular owner, and that was what a small chunk of time. That 5-year window under Air Coryell was just absolutely amazing.
Well, why did Klein sell the team?
I think age and health more than anything else. And okay. I think he was tired of the problems. He had a lot of conflicts with Howard Slusher, who was the agent of the Stars. Howard Slusher was to the NFL what Scott Boras is right now. You get a lot of heartburn dealing with that all the time.
Right.
And he got dinged. His players held out. That was just bitter stuff. That was in the early 80s. I got here in 87, and all that had passed by the boards. Klein, people that I know who played for Klein, worked for Klein, hell of a guy.
Yeah, the late 80s was a rough time for the Chargers. And I remember going to, because you couldn't watch the game on TV.
No, so it was sold out.
Unless it was sold out. And then even sometimes it was hard to get, with home games, unless it was sold out. I would go to this bar in Leucadia, and I would be able to watch the games because I was living in Encinitas at the time. But it's cool that you were here, kind of during a down period for the Chargers, but then saw them rise up and get all the way to the Super Bowl.
The journey to be great is something you never, ever forget. I hardly ever think about Steve Young's 6 touchdown passes, 49ers blowout win over the Chargers. When I think of Chargers Super Bowl win, I think about, wow, what a cool experience that was to be part of it and to see a bad team get better and better. And then all of a sudden it just happened, and to see it come together, that journey, that to me was more impressive than getting to the Super Bowl and having Steve Young throw 6 touchdown passes.
Now, were you broadcasting for the Chargers when they had the strike and they had the replacement players?
Yeah, that was my first year.
First year? Really?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was pretty ugly because we had a bunch of really union activist guys. Every freaking linebacker was a radical on the Chargers. And they knew this lockout, it was 1987, was going to happen. And it happened after I think it was the 3rd week of the season. And they shut the thing down. They canceled week 4. Everybody brought all these street free agents in. And I'll say one thing, Steve Whitmire, who was then the general manager, he knew all these players who were periphery fringe players, but he got them all collected come. And the Chargers went 3-0 with the replacement Charger team. 3-0, and 2 of them were on the road. We won in Tampa Bay in a rainstorm. We won in Cincinnati in a really ugly incident. And then we beat the Raiders up in L.A. Beat Al Davis. Our scabs are better than your scabs. Or I should say your criminals.
Were there any names on the Charger roster that you remembered from playing pro ball or playing in college?
Yeah, Rick Neuheisel was the quarterback.
Oh, he was?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I mean, it was a bit controversial. The Chargers went 3-0 with the replacement players. Then they settled the strike and everybody came back in. The Chargers kept 16 of the guys from the replacement team. 16. That locker room was a little dicey early on. Fouts and those guys, there are a lot of radical union guys. I said, you're bringing these strike breakers in and they're putting them on our roster. But the thing was, the Chargers were hot. They were 8-1 out of the gate my first year. I mean, Fouts was playing well, and it just really came together. And then Fouts got dinged, and we lost 6 in a row at the end. It was over.
What a first year for you.
We finished up 8-7. But I covered the picket lines. Holy cow, you talk about nasty stuff. And one of the players, They would practice at the practice field down at the edge of the parking lot at Qualcomm Stadium, and everybody would park in the players' lot. And all the replacements came back one day, and they all had flat tires. Well, where do you think that hack came from? They didn't all drive over the same nail. That was members of the Chargers who were carrying picket signs outside the practice field, call them scabs, going back up and puncturing their tires.
It reminds me of that Keanu Reeves, Gene Hackman movie.
That's right.
You know, the replacements, because they were didn't they flip over Keanu Reeves' pickup truck in the parking lot?
Yeah, it was a lot of nasty stuff that went on there. And we played the second replacement game was in Cincinnati against Mike Brown's Bengals. And Cincinnati is kind of a big union town. Well, what they did was the union brought in all these picket guys from Pittsburgh. So we had all these coal miners and steel workers who were standing outside Riverfront Stadium with placards and stuff. The Chargers were terrified there was going to be an incident. So we went to the stadium in a different route and came in a back way underneath because they were afraid that these radical union guys are going to raise hell about the scabs, the guys crossing the picket line to play for the replacement Charger team. So they were really worried about that. That was the second week. And Pittsburgh had the same when the Steelers played, same exact thing, because that's big union country, big Steeler fans.
Do you think there's ever going to be another lockout in the NFL?
No, because everybody's making so much money. They'll find a way. There should, flipping topics here just real quickly, a lot of conversation about a lockout in baseball after 26. Why would you lock out when everybody's making money? TV contracts are an all-time high, attendance all-time high, ratings all-time high. Don't sit there and fire negatives at the other side. Don't sit there and threaten. Just go to the table and find a middle ground here. Don't do anything to damage the game. The game has roared back in terms of popularity. I'll guarantee you ask Padre fans, they don't want to see a lockout in 27. They've got 2 years. They got 25 and 26 to negotiate a new CBA, which might involve a cap or might involve different luxury tax rules, should involve a floor to spending. Did you get my memo that I sent to Tony Clark?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll get a Christmas card from Tony Clark again. But you got 2 years to negotiate it. Don't sit there and fire shots at the other guy. Come to the table because everybody's doing so well in baseball. Just there's got to be a rearrangement of the spending of the money. And I salute Tony Clark for ripping the crap out of Artie Moreno. That's fine. Now, you make sure you do it in Miami, you do it in Tampa Bay, you do it to the owner in Pittsburgh, you do it to the guy with the A's. Let's make sure you fire the gunshot at everybody that's nickel and diming their fans and not putting a good product on the field. Am I right or am I right?
Well, I think you're right. Absolutely. But, if MLB attempted a lockout in 2027, that's still during Donald Trump's term. He's the art of the deal. He's going to come and solve the problem. I alone can fix it, just like he's doing with the LIV and PGA.
Has that been solved yet? Did I miss that memo?
He was in the 4-hour meeting.
Did that include the resolution of the tariff things that he just rescinded? You told me we were not going to talk politics on my podcast.
We were talking about deal making.
Oh,
okay,
geez.
let's keep moving here. Let's go to Flegel. And he says, John Q here. I had no idea hockey could be as awesome until my daughter showed me. I'm retired now, but we watched the final U.S.-Canada game together. Goaltending made all the difference as far as I could tell. Jared Binnington was awesome.
You know what the interesting story, the side story there, I don't know if you've heard Matthew Tkachuk, the star, Team USA, torn groin, gone for the year. Florida just lost their captain. And there have been 8 players who had major injuries in the Four Nations tournament. Only one of them, Brady Tkachuk, is the only one that's come back as totally healthy. 7 guys are still out with injuries. So the tournament was phenomenal, but boy, there's a risk involved. There's a price to pay. And now you got Florida here losing Matthew Tkachuk. Big blow.
I'll bet you, though, if you asked every one of those players that got hurt, they'd do the same thing all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're out there representing their nation, and that tournament was so electric. Everyone was excited about it. I mean, it's bad luck, but, and I'm glad Flegel getting turned on to hockey, just like I am. So good for you getting your daughter getting
Flegel, when the playoffs begin, I guarantee you're going to get mesmerized by watching these best of 7 series. They take that competition level to another level when the postseason begins in April. I mean, it's kind of really unique. We move on.
Okay, let's go here to Gordon. He goes, "Hi, Lee and John from Gusty and Dusty Las Cruces. A different question for you. Why does minor league Class A baseball have only 2 umpires? Is it all about money? Thanks again. Great show."
It is economics. Yeah, exactly. It's all driven. I mean, AAA umpiring is different than AA or Class A, et cetera. And again, you've got to be able to get these guys to be able to give up whatever other careers they have if they're going to just operate and umpire AA games or Class A games. So it's all economically driven.
I remember like 10 years ago, I was the president of Poway National Little League. Can you believe that? And we had a controversy where the fans, the parents wanted to have 2 umpires on the field rather than just 1. And it was a big controversy. And it is economics. I mean, it makes a big difference. So, but this level here, Class A, you still think that all that revenue from the major league teams, they could at least get 4 umpires. You don't need to have umpires down the left field and right field line like you do in the World Series.
Yeah, but how many games are there in the Florida State League Class A ball every night? 8, 10. So if you're talking 2 umpires a game, that's 20. Your theory is 4 umpires a game in the Florida State League Class A ball. That's 40 umpires a night. Cost factor is unbelievable.
Well, it adds up, but I mean that's like a speck of sand in the beach when it compared to Juan Soto's contract. So I mean, even if you look at basketball, it's still 3 refs in the NBA as it is in college ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they skimp and only go with 2.
Lower minor leagues. That's the economics is what drives all of that. Good question, though. Thanks, Gord.
Okay, let's go here to foul play. Rob, World Baseball Classic favorites?
Anything that's related to Japan probably has to get strong consideration. I haven't paid any attention to World Baseball Classic. I mean, it's novel. Obviously, the Caribbean teams are just phenomenal because of how many great players they have. And, Team USA should be there. Injuries have something to do with it. They've never, to me, as cool as it's been, and I've been down there on the field. I took part in all the press conferences with Joe Torre and all those people. And it's such a neat aura. But they've never configured, John, what's the proper place to put it? You put it at the beginning of the season, but what about the injury risk? Are your pitchers ready for that level of competition? You can't put it at the end of the season post-World Series because then it's mid-November, late November, where you're going to play it in cold weather. And you don't want to, I don't think they want to eradicate the All-Star game or have a 2-week window time off. It's a tough place to place it just because of the scheduling.
Well, hockey figured it out, right? They
this
did it
one time, yes.
They did it mid-season, and it gives guys an extended break for a week or 2 that aren't on the teams. Doing the World Baseball Classic in March is too early. I mean, it didn't make sense. But I'll tell you what, I went to Petco with my son and some of his buddies for the 2017 game, USA versus Dominican Republic. And that was the one where Adam Jones robbed that home run in center field from Manny Machado. That was like watching an all-star game. There was so much major league talent on the field. It was an electric atmosphere with all the drums and everything else going on in the stadium. I loved every minute of it. But yeah, when's the next World Baseball Classic? It's
this year.
Yeah, because I went in 2017, and then I think they were going to do it in 21, but wasn't there a problem because of COVID? So I'm not sure when the next one is.
It might be 28, something like that. I haven't heard anything about it recently, but they've just never found a fixed position. And to this day, they still don't know what's the right window on the baseball calendar to do it. And it's a very, very complex thing. Unless if you're going to have the Classic, maybe you shorten the season from 162 to 154 that given year. And then you find a place to put it in the middle of the season. Maybe you do it during make the All-Star break a 2-week thing with a 154-game schedule and play the Classic in there.
Okay, just for that 1 year, that could make sense. Maybe the owners be willing to give a little on that.
Nah, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay,
let's go here to Al, and he says, "Hey, it's okay with me, a Jet fan."
Okay, what's he making reference to?
I don't know. Well, I think we're talking about the Winnipeg
fans.
Winnipeg
Jets.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. For some reason,
we were talking about Mark Gastineau.
Yeah, earlier. I got so much Aaron Rodgers in my brain.
Yeah.
Winnipeg's got pieces they could move, but man, I don't want to disrupt team chemistry. That's a really good hockey team. that they got up there in the old Canada Network. But we'll see. But salary cap comes into the play here because, I mean, there's a lot of these teams are really capped out, and it's a big, big issue. Friday, 12 noon. Holy cow. Don't go out for lunch. You're going to miss something. It's great. It is just so great. This coolest thing, one of the sports websites out of Canada, it's called TSN.ca. They have what's called a trade tracker. And they pop the deals on just as they're being announced. It is just fascinating to follow that. And it just, trade deadline might end at noon. That trade tracker keeps running until 12:15, till 12:30, 12:45, because the trades have to be approved by the league office, and then they're formally announced. They got all the stuff. If you're a hockey freak, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's kind of like the sports ticker, you know?
Exactly.
It's like I think of the old stock market tickers. And I'll say this too, is, you know, we're talking about Winnipeg. I've been to Eastern Canada, you know, Toronto, Montreal, Quebec, Nova Scotia. I've been to British Columbia, and it's wonderful, but I've never been into any of those middle provinces. I mean, you've been there.
It's called the prairies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta. It's like driving across the state of Texas. You can see forever because it's flat as hell and it's colder than hell.
You know, you remember your old buddy Jim Rome when he was doing the world tour, when he was doing his show. I remember he went to Omaha because that was one of his first
network affiliates.
Yeah, network affiliates. And he says, yeah, in Omaha, you could stand on a beer can and see 100 miles.
Yep. That's what Saskatchewan is, and that's what southern Alberta and Manitoba is. Now up north, you get into the Canadian Rocky parts of Alberta, which is absolutely beautiful. You never been to Banff?
No.
What the hell's wrong with you?
I got to get out, man. I got to go check it out.
You need to get out of the house once in a while.
Well, I got to do it in the summertime. I think.
No. Oh, skis, pal.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, Banff Springs Hotel. The old Canada Network knows what the hell I'm talking about. Vancouver's a great city. It's so cosmopolitan.
Oh, I love Vancouver.
Yeah.
I felt, it felt a lot like San Francisco to me.
And I went to Eastern Canada. I went to the Canadian Maritimes because my wife's family was there from Nova Scotia. And that's cool. And again, I grew up on the ocean. I grew up on Long Island. So going to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, standing on the rocks, watching the Atlantic come in, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Little barren. Economics are not quite the same. It's different. But old Canada, not a bad place.
Okay, let's keep moving. And here, Rubber Toe chimes in. He goes, the WBC is next year, every 3 years.
Well, when you can figure where is the best place on the calendar to put it, please call me, because they're still searching. They can't figure it out. And, you know, they put it early last year, and there were a lot of pitchers that had health issues, including you, Darvish, of the Padres. So there's just got to be a lot more dialogue about that. All right, next one.
Okay. Go to KC, and he says, what Padre player can cover center field? Hayward, Lockridge?
Did Jackson Merrill leave? Hayward is of the opinion that he's going to split between center and right. Now, he's been playing some left in spring training, but the bulk of his life has been in center and right, and I think you probably keep him there. But Jackson Merrill's not coming out of the bloody lineup at all. Now, they may give these guys blows, and then Hayward would play if Merrill was a DH, et cetera, et cetera. But we're halfway through spring training, and they have to configure who's my left fielder. They have to make a choice who's the starting catcher. Somebody's got to hit. Help wanted sign is out. Find me a bat, because right now most of those guys are not hitting.
Well, you know, KC jumped in here. He had a little follow-up. He goes, if Merrill needs a day off.
Concur.
Yeah, and so I think it's Hayward. I don't think Lockridge makes this team, because I think Hayward, I was surprised because I thought it was going to be Hayward and Joe platooning in left or something like that, but they're going to use these guys in different ways.
Well, and the fact that Ornelas has just hit the heck out of the ball, and Ornelas has kind of played his way into the left field thing. But that being said, 'tis March, not opening day. And opening day, they start throwing old Charlie. And opening day, they start throwing the cutters. And then the guys who are hitting well in the spring might be going back to El Paso once they start doing this other stuff.
You know, I want to get one more in here from Flegel because I really liked it. He said, I'm a Dodger fan from 1969, guys. Mock me if you like. I can take it.
You will take it.
Yeah, I just that the 60s was a glory era for the
Sure.
Dodgers, but when they got into the late 60s, maybe not as much, right? Because it was the early to mid 60s when they did well.
They've
Right.
always been, I think they've always been a legacy franchise forever and ever. Outside of the era of Frank McCourt, that bankrupt owner of bankrupt morals, Dodgers have been a great franchise. They've been a flagship of Major League Baseball. Classy, different than Steinbrenner's evil empire, but now they've had so many great years, and we're going through this has been a great decade. There may be a lot of non-believers of Dave Roberts, but what Dodger baseball has been in the last decade is spectacular. His one-loss record over his almost 10 years of managing is the best in the history of Dodger baseball, and that Dodger baseball includes Walter Smokey Alston and all those great teams that you're alluding to, and then Lasorda.
Yeah.
His numbers, Dave Roberts' numbers, are better than either of those guys. And those guys are icons.
And then Dodger fan wanted to fire Dave Roberts just a year or two ago.
Multiple times.
Yeah. But, I started following the Dodgers in the 70s because that's when I was a kid and I was following the Giants, and the Dodgers, of course, were loaded. They had that famous infield. But, if you look on the back of it, like Steve Garvey's baseball card, I think he was a rookie like in the late 60s, so.
Well, those guys, that whole infield kind of came up simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then they were in the World Series against the A's. What was that? Was that in 73, I think? So that was Flegel got on board with the Dodgers. That was a great time to join the party.
Flegel, opening week of the season, I'll wear my Dodger hoodie if you wear yours. Then we get yelled at together.
Okay, let's get some social media people here involved. And where do we want to start here? Let's talk a little NHL trade deadline. Stephen Phillips, he says, Kane wants to come back near the end of the season. It seems like every other team has their players out for the whole season to help their caps.
Exactly. And that's a problem, is that if he comes back, that impacts Edmonton's cap. If he elected to sit out the entire season, they would get cap relief, and you could trade his expiring contract to somebody else who would give them cap relief. Kane, he's talking about Evander Kane, has been very controversial over the course of his career. He's been involved in so much junk off the ice that I'm still surprised he's got the kind of contract that he has. He's been productive, but he's not been the superstar that I think many people imagined when I think he started in San Jose, but he's had so much crap off the ice that I'm still surprised that people still want to do business with him. But he had a sports hernia surgery. He was hurt at the end of last season, so he's still in that limbo area on long-term IR. If he stays on long-term IR, Edmonton could move the contract, but if he wants to come back and play, then that prohibits the potential of a deal. And who wants to take on this problem who's been out all season long too?
So I've never heard of this dynamic. So you can take a player that's on your roster and put them on long-term IR, and then it doesn't count towards the salary cap?
Yes, you get some form of discount. Yeah, exactly. But he has to be out for an extended period. You can't hide him there.
Right.
It's got to be approved that he's on long-term IR for this injury.
And it has to be a legit injury.
Yep.
But then you would think that if it didn't count for the salary cap, that he would be ineligible for the whole season, including the playoffs.
You can bring him back, but then it hurts your cap when you bring him back.
Oh, they probably get the full impact of the salary when they bring him back.
No, right? I think it's prorated, but you still get dinged.
Yeah.
Yeah. His cap number is, I don't know, 5.9 or something.
But that must be unique to the NHL, because I've never heard of this in other sports.
Yep. There's a lot of unique things in Canada, trust me.
Okay, let's keep moving and talk a little Dodgers Padres smack with Sheepdog's Heart. He says, let's talk about the Dodgers credit card bill, all the guys on deferral. Hey, more like a prepaid credit card, so no worries down the road. But thanks for exemplifying San Diego fans are still failing to grasp how far behind the Dodgers they are on every level.
Well, Padre fans, they're always optimistic about their team, and it's been a pretty good team for a group of years. But that being said, if I say this, will I get yelled at? The baseball season is about to be open. The Dodger Invitational season is about to be open.
That's what it is.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Unless the Dodgers completely fall off the map and everybody winds up on the disabled list, that's still a pretty good Dodger team. And the Padres are a good team, but the Padres are not equal to them. I've taken so much heat for listing the top starting rotations in baseball, and I had the Padres with the fifth best.
Mm-hmm.
People just banging on me because I did the same thing I took the board that we built and I used it on KUSI on Saturday mornings, and I do my sports package there. And people said, "You're crazy." I said, "They got a top 5 starting rotation." Now, I'm not saying it's the best pitching staff in baseball. I said, but there's 30 teams in baseball, and there's 25 others that aren't equal to what these guys have, and these guys are ranked 5th in my estimation. Well, people just jumping up and down.
Well, I mean, the top 3 are fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, Michael King showed yesterday in his spring training debut. So did Pavetta. Darvish is going to be great. And you know, when the Padres added Pavetta, you're like, okay, we have a solid guy in that number 4 spot. And he's not going to light the world on fire, but compared to other starting rotations,
yeah.
I mean, do you want to be the Colorado Rockies pitching staff? I mean, or the St. Louis Cardinals? I mean, none of these are as good as the Padres. We just have unrealistic expectations because we're always comparing with the Dodgers.
Dodgers.
Yeah.
Move on.
Okay, let's go here to Nathan Perry, Drunk Reflex, talking about the instant replay in the NFL. He goes, the NFL needs to take a page out of NHL's playbook. It still needs a little work, but all major penalties called on the ice are now reviewed to make sure they get it right. All high-sticking calls are double-checked if an offending player caused actual damage to the other player, which determines if this was a regular 2-minute or a 4-minute double minor. You're right. If you can use replay to change a ball spot, you can use it for a missed face mask.
Get it right. And if there's a mistake, get it right through the use of replay. The thing that I don't agree with, they use replay right now in an advisory capacity. I'll look at this on replay up on the booth, and I will message down to you, John, pick up the flag. You made a mistake. Okay. Well, they can do that. The next step should be, I'm going to message John, that pass rusher hit that quarterback right in the face mask or yanked it from the side. Throw a flag. They have not approved that aspect of a replay challenge or assistance in the replay booth. Why not? If you're picking up a flag because it was a wrong call, throw a flag if it was a missed call. Yes or yes?
Yeah. Like you say, get it right. But you see this in other sports too, where they'll say, well, that kind of penalty is non-reviewable. And you're like, well, what the hell? I mean, if the whole objective here is to get it right, why would you make certain plays ineligible?
Exactly. Major plays. I don't want to stoppage every time there's a snap. You don't want to get there. And it's the same thing with baseball and the robo-ump and the ABS system. We don't want to stop the game because everybody's doing this.
Yeah, but there's if they do it right, there's a limit on how many times you can throw that flag for the challenge. Yeah, let me just get it right.
Okay, move on. We've got a couple more social media. I think I'm going to get slammed here on one of these.
Let's go to Pete Rose for Hacksaw. And this is from Norbert. And he goes, he's quoting you, "Rip Pete Rose, wherever the hell you are."
Oh, here we go.
You call yourself a Catholic? I've listened to you for 30 years, Lee. You sound like a bitter, myopic, sanctimonious boomer these days. Lent starts tomorrow, Hack. Maybe give up your anger and TDS this year.
I'm not angry. I'm just expressing opinions. I know a lot about Pete Rose. I dealt with Pete Rose. Pete Rose was a great player. Pete Rose was not a great person. So, if the only thing that you draw a conclusion on is 4,256 hits or whatever the mystical number was, that's great. But I understand Pete Rose, who he was and all the flaws that he had, in addition to being a fine baseball player. I think you can't write the history of baseball and the success of the game without his input into the success of the game. So you put the plaque in there and you put an asterisk next to it. But it does open up Pandora's box, because now we're going all the way back to 1919 Black Sox and the greatest player of that era, shoeless Joe Jackson. How are you going to treat that one? Somebody, Norbert, you have an answer for that? And then, by the way, Norbert, in terms of talking about Catholicism and right versus wrong, how are you going to rule on Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, a.k.a. the steroid kings? What are we doing there? I don't have an answer for everything. I have an opinion on everything, which obviously bothers him. Maybe he's a Protestant or Episcopalian. I don't know. But Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. I think it creates a whole bunch of other things. No? Yes? John Riley says.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this at infinitum. I mean, Rose needs to be in. I mean, bottom line. And so all the other steroid guys. But I'll tell you what, the part about Norbert's comment that I loved is he said, "I've listened to you for 30 years. And you'd be surprised how many people in social media comment with that kind of a line, because they feel like they've had a relationship with you for so long, whether it's Chargers broadcasting, sports talk radio, or seeing you on television.
Proves one thing: if you do it long enough, you should get good enough at it.
Okay.
Let's do one more here.
Okay, it's some more smack talk with Dodger fan. This is from the Atomic Punks. Because Manny is butthurt. The Dodgers didn't want to re-sign him, and it has been his mission to exact revenge on the Dodgers and failed. And as a Dodger fan, I suspect much of our trash-talking of Padres franchise is because of Manny. He is, after all, the face of the franchise. He's also a complete jackass.
Well, he was a punk when he first came up, and he was entitled, and he was very good. There's no doubt about that. But I had people in Baltimore tell me when he was coming out here to the West Coast, or when he actually signed with the Padres, he said, good luck to you. You're not going to enjoy this. And I struggled with him in terms of accessibility, and I dealt with him, and I didn't agree with him all the time. He surely didn't agree with me. He was the one that used the phrase on me, check the back of my baseball card. Okay. And that's fine. But he's a really good player. Has he evolved? Has he changed? Well, I think a lot of people have the opinion he has. And I don't know whether that's maturity, whether that's fatherhood, whether that's his relations with the late, great Peter Seidler. But he's different now. But at the end of the day, he was still a punk in Baltimore. And then obviously, I'm not Johnny Hustle, which offended a hell of a lot of people at Dodger Stadium. And then he signed down here. So, yeah. But except the fact he is a really, really good complete ball player. He just balls all the time. You can't get him out of the lineup. And there's a real check mark there in terms of dedication to the game, even if you don't like the persona.
Well, I remember when the Padres signed him. What was that? 2019, I think, right? And I just kept repeating to myself in my mind, I can't believe the Padres signed Manny Machado.
I can't believe they paid him $30 million, but then he was out to get the biggest payday he could. He was Juan Soto before Juan Soto.
Yeah, and you can't blame him. He just cashed in on his market value. But I remember there were rumors that Peter Seidler was flirting with the idea of signing both Machado and Bryce Harper back then. I mean, can you imagine if that happened?
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be something.
And Bryce Harper's turned out to be a hell of a player in the glare of the spotlight. He was in the glare of the spotlight with the Washington Nationals at age 18. And he's been a fine player. And he's been willing to do anything. He first came up, I think, as a catcher. And then, and then they're going to make him an outfielder. Yeah, he's from Las Vegas. He was a catcher, made him an outfielder, and they moved him to first base. And he just announced, if you want to put me back in the outfield, because the Phillies are trying to get another first baseman with a bat, he said, I'll go back to right field if you want. Just tell me what glove to take, and I'll do it. He's a really good player.
I think Rafael Devers needs to take some notes from that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll play wherever you want. But I love the smack talk, the Padre-Dodger rivalry. I love it all. Dodgers have the upper hand right now. I understand that, but there'll be a time when they're going to get knocked off their perch.
So you promise me that you won't go through the months of April and May and June pissed off because you're not doing well in the Dodger Invitational Tournament?
Yeah.
National League schedule.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, the Padres are going to surprise. They're going to be better than you think. And the Dodgers, everything is going their way. It's always going their way. That's not going to continue. There's going to be some curses and bad luck for them as well.
On the back license plate of your SUV in the garage here, does it say homeboy? Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast. We're here Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We do put topics on the table. We love having you part of the Fans Forum chat box at the end. Please tell everybody, just message everybody in your Rolodex who we are, where we are. Hacksaw's back. Invite them to check my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's all written, and be with us on the podcast Mondays and Thursdays. Podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. Go to Dixieline.com, see what they've got to offer.